I have all 12 of the Peek into Batik blocks completed. I am super excited to teach all of you today how to do the sashing and cornerstones for the settings. Let's throw these things on the design wall and get started. Welcome back to Making It Fun, everybody. I am your host, Rob Appell from Michael Miller Fabrics. I'm super excited you are here to watch me finish out our awesome sew-along we've been doing all year, all of 2020. So let's wrap this year up in style and finish this quilt off all together, right? So if you have just found this, we have free patterns for all 12 of these blocks I'm going to show you. They're listed in the link below over at our blog, which we call Making It Fun. Great name if you ask me. Okay, and so there are two different sets of instructions. We have both rotary cutting and the AccuQuilt block cutting system instructions, so you can print out whichever you like. You can use them both. They all go together to form these awesome finished 16.5-inch squares. We've got 12 different ones. Now these squares were made with the Michael Miller Basics. I was using the hash dot. As you can see, we have the turquoise and we have the meadow and the mustard, and then here is our meadow color of our marble fabric, and our jet black was used on the outside with the marble to create the star effect. All 12 blocks look like this, and you can actually see the original quilt right behind me, which looks just terrific as well. And it was done with a whole different collection of batiks and the jet black or the black cotton couture, which just looks awesome if you ask me. But I wanted to do something fun with the basics, because the basics are fabrics you should be able to find in all of your local quilt shops, and that is the way we can support those local quilters out there right here at Making It Fun. So are you ready? I'm super excited to do this. I've been waiting for quite a while anyways to do this block count so you can get a fantastic look. Are you ready? Drum roll. Let's start the music. Here we go. Block number 1. Block number 2. Block number 3. Here we go. Here's block number 4. Block number 5. Block number 6. 7, 8, and block number 9. Okay, these ones are gonna be tough. Here we go. Block number 10, way up there. Oh. Block number 11. Oh, and yes, 12 quilt block squares from Peek into Batik. 12 quilt blocks. Here we go. Yes, and that is right. There they are, all up on the design wall, all 12 of them. Now let's do that sashing. So yes, as we are building our sashings today, I want to talk a little bit more about the theory. We have fantastic instructions that look just like this, and like I said, those are in the link below over at our blog called Making It Fun. And we're going to follow the instructions, but I want you to know how to do this in case you don't have instructions or you're making your own quilt. The whole theory of teaching a person to quilt instead of giving you a quilt, right? So what you want to first do is take all of your blocks, and let's just start with block number 1, because that's where we're going to really want to start and keep track. And then the first thing you would want to do is you would want to go ahead and measure across your edges, right? And make sure that all of your blocks are the same. Now these are going to be 16.5, and that determines what size strips we want to make, okay? So technically, we also need to account for the width of our seam allowances. It would be into our cornerstones. So these were all made from 2.5-inch strips. I want to be able to set a stone like yay between the different layers of sashings as they go in. So everything needs to be the same width as we go. And then as we sew these in, these are 2.5 inches wide, so they're gonna finish at 2 inches. And so you may also need to do that with the calculation. So if this was 16.5 inches wide, it's gonna basically finish at 16 inches. So as you're going across, you're adding the 2 inches and the 16 inches into each column, and that will help you figure out how much backing, in case you're purchasing all of your fabric at one time, to do do your backing and your sashings and your bindings and that kind of thing. Now in today's project, I have added in a new fabric. Now you know I'm a sucker for our solids at Michael Miller. Our cotton couture, our high density cottons are fantastic. So this is one of my all-time favorite colors. It is called Lagoon. And what I want to do in my quilt is I want to make sure that the star blocks get the attention. And so like you can see here, we've added in a new color of fabric in our sashings, and we've left the cornerstones the same. I'm going to add in the green cornerstones because green is my favorite color, of course. And so I just chose a solid that falls right in between all of the blues and greens that we've used in here because I don't want it to distract from the block units themselves. So once that is done, and I just wanted, like I said, wanted to share that concept. Now what we can do is we can come in here and we can find in the instructions that what they really want us to do is sew together our horizontal or running sideways, you know, along the horizon line. And so in doing that, we're going to take the blocks off the wall, and I should check to make sure the yellows and the blacks and the greens are all in the orientation I want. And I will. Done. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add just one of these sashing strips to the block like this. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here, and we're doing everything with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. We're just going to sew all the way through nice and straight. And then after I stitch on each piece, I'm going to come on over to the ironing board, take a second to tidy up here. And now what I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to press basically right into the sashing strip. And then I'm going to immediately grab this side, the seam side from block number 2 as it stands on the design wall, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grab this right now, and I'm just going to lay it right sides together. I'm going to rotate it and bring it right back over to the sewing machine and begin sewing the next block to that first piece of sashing. So what I'm really pointing out while I'm getting this sewing going is we're not even thinking about those cornerstones yet. We're putting on just the rows or the little 16.5 by 2.5 inch rectangles of our solid in between each block in the rows that way. Now, as this one comes off the machine, I'm going to press into the block. So basically, I'm just moving away from my work as I go. And I'll finish this section out here by adding in one more sashing strip and then the third block before I start making the rows with the cornerstone. So let me get a little ahead of you all with all of these first round of sashings, and then I'll show you how to do those cornerstones in just a jiff. And as I come out of the machine and I'm heading over to the ironing board, let me just point out that as I've been sewing on the blocks and sewing on the sashings as I go, I am mounting them over here on the design wall and just making sure that I have each starting block to keep track. So this is 1, 4, 7, and then block number 10 is over there. And so I want to make sure I always know the orientation at this point so I don't get lost as I'm doing it. So let's throw a quick pin in this while we come back to putting in our actual cornerstones now. Perfect. Now, for the cornerstones, what I was trying to say earlier is all of your math needs to be equal. So whatever width your strips are, so if this is a 2.5 inch width, your cornerstones are then going to just be squares at 2.5. And now for this particular pattern, what we just did is we did a block, a sashing, a block, a sashing, a block. So now we're going to build basically these rows that fit in here between here. So we're going to need a sashing, a cornerstone, a sashing, a cornerstone, and a sashing. It works really easy. So I'm just going to go ahead and actually you can kind of chain piece these. So you can take a sashing and a cornerstone for each set. So you have 3 sashings, 2 cornerstones. Grab them like this, and we're just going to go ahead and run that 1/4 inch seam over them really quick. We'll do all of our pressing at the end phase here. So I can go ahead and sew over that one, grab this one. And even though you're going a little bit fast, please make sure you're being accurate because we really want our cornerstones to line up nice with our patchwork. Now we can just cut our threads, super easy. Hit your thread cutter there, and then I'm just going to go ahead and lay this one open. I'm going to spin the one I was just handling, making sure though that it's right sides together. Dropping that on there. And I'll sew on through here and then just cut. And again, before I go to the iron, I'm going to flop this over, grab that last piece of sashing I already had prepared. So you had 17 of the 16.5 by 2.5s, and you had 6 of the 2.5 by 2.5 squares to create all of the setting pieces we needed. And as those are now all stitched together, we're going to come on over here to the iron. And really you can press into the cornerstones, and it's really best to press your sashing into the block so that you're getting some nesting of your seams. So you really can do that. Oops, probably just as easy to do this side up. And then just spin it this way. There we go. Now, I'm just going to work my way back up the design wall because it's just the easiest way to place it. So remember, this was my starting block right here. So that was on this orientation over there. So that means that now this cornerstone is going to drop in starting right here. And now all I need to do is I need to flop over my sashing, and I'm just going to lay those cornerstones together. You may wish to put a few pins in here just to keep things accurate. But as I start on my 1/4 inch seam allowance, I'm actually going to keep a majority of the weight of the project now on the table. That really helps keep from the dragging behind on the machine. And now once I start sewing, I'm going to take a moment and I'm just going to recalibrate my fingers, come on down here like I always do, and just pinch together those seam allowances. And now I can just make sure my block and my sashings are laying flat as I start adding on each of the rows of sashing that have the cornerstones into my rows of blocks. Just taking the time to align up each cornerstone at the union of our sashings. I just came over another cornerstone, so now I'm holding down here my next seams together. And as I get about 1/3 of the way down that seam, I just make sure everything's lining up. There is a bit of flex if you needed it in there. And now I definitely want to take the time and to press each of these sashings up and over before I even attempt to start to put together the next row. I want everything to be really pressed and nice so that I'm staying accurate, and it helps me not have to be wrestling with it later when there's so much bulk. So I'm going to press the sashing up, and I'm going to add on the next row of quilt squares, and then I will add in another row of sashing with cornerstones and show you as it's all complete. Okay, folks, I do. I have the very last row on. It is all put together, and it's just been a terrific project. I'm so glad you've all been here to join me for the Peek into Batik, the Quilt Along, Sew Along block of the month. This is what my project has turned out with like. Really excited about it. You can see the cornerstones there, the sashings, all of the other blocks, mostly things lined up pretty darn well. Hey, it's quilting. That's just the way it goes, right? But I do want to point out really quick, the next phase will be getting it ready for the machine quilting. Now, I think you can see fairly simply in the quilt behind me here, just very simple straight line quilting. This was probably done with the feed dogs in the up position and a standard presser foot, maybe even a walking foot. If you want to do some straight line quilting, of course you want to run up one direction and back down the other to keep everything working correctly. I think I'm going to throw this thing on my new Juki J350 long arm and just take some more time to practice. Something like this is great because all of the blocks are different, so I can practice different motifs in what would be the different little areas around the quilt and just continually grow my library of quilting designs as we all continue to grow our quilting and sewing together. So folks, let me just show it off one more time. Maybe I'll hold it like this so you can see it a little bit differently. Here we go. There it is, my version of the Peek into Batik, the Quilt Along, Sew Along from Michael Miller and AccuQuilt. Thank you again for being here. That is the way we make a quilt in just 12 short months right here at Making It Fun. We'll see you, oh hey, real soon. We've got another block of the month starting up in January 2021 called Patch Party. We will see you for that next one. Thanks, folks. What? Are you actually still here? That's fantastic. Make sure you check out some more of my other fabulous content right here on YouTube. I think it's terrific. Please subscribe while you're there and make sure you hit that little notification bell so you don't miss another moment of the fun.